Hey, yo, this werewolf game is pretty good. Gotta go fast, gotta go loop. And it really nails a sense of speed. Blasting through corridors, tearing the level asunder as Sonic has almost jet ski-like physics that make controlling him as fun as it is tantalizingly tricky. It also has amazing little towns with horrific NPCs that I hate, but in a way that I also find kind of funny, and the music blasts rope, sprays, and busts strands. Bussin'! Not sure about the actual werewolf stages though. Like, you know, I do get it. Sonic go fast, so level go big, yet whiz by in a blink. And that's a lot of assets to make and lightings to place just for the player to run through it all in minutes. In any other game, you could have spent hours in a zone this expansive, but Sonic does not have time for that. And so you add JRPG towns and multiple story paths and other excuses that basically force the player to replay, cause you can't be releasing a game that's only like 3, 4, maybe 2 if you're good enough hours long. That's crazy. And I guess this time they wanted to try something else to pad things out, and Werehog it was. Not the worst thing ever, I suppose. It mostly feels good aside from the awkward contextuals, and while it does get a tad repetitive and illfully long-winded, it hovers pretty comfortably around the mostly mediocre mark. What's way worse is the actual artificial padding that they do, where it's like, oops, to enter this stage you need 9 more sun coins, go back to all the load screened up levels to go get them. Which, no, I don't think I will. And here's the thing too, why can't they just drop a shorter game? Sure, that did backfire pretty harshly with Forces, but that's mainly because it's Forces. Think if a game that played as well and is as fun as Unleashed's running stages are, then they would have been better off just adding 2 or 3 more levels, rather than spending time struggling with cooking up a whole ass beat 'em up system, as then you'd have a game that people will most likely want to replay anyway. Especially if you add some cool little time bonuses or speedrun modes or just something to emphasize that type of playstyle more. The game would be shorter, yes, but almost certainly also better, at least when looked back upon. As, yeah, that is kind of an issue in it. Gamers do be getting mad when their new game isn't at least 20 hours long or some shit. Oh, what? This brand new, shiny, well-made RE2 remake is only like 7 hours? But you can't have that. That's a ripoff. Never mind all of the extra modes and arcadey high-speed replayability. No, Google that playtime, check the almost certainly edited and pre-prepared long play length, and get mad. Luckily, unlike Sonic Team, Capcom has been a lot more successful in combating this, either by putting the emphasis on replayability in the way that I wished Unleashed had done, multiple stories, hella unlockables, new game pluses, and just being really good tend to let them do that, or by simply throwing all the money at the project, like how they did with 4 and 6, thus ending up with games that are actually relatively long, or by simply just not giving a fuck about the small, tiny, minuscule but vocal crowd insecure about length issues. The Revelations, 7, the 2 recent remakes are all games very confidently hanging around that 5 to 10 hour mark for just a single simple run through, which I think is great. However, with news of the new RE8 being more open, possibly having more than one protagonist and having some, interesting to me at least, parallels to Sonic Unleashed, could it finally shatter the arcadey pensions and non-epic gameplay lengths and be a huge, big, hulkingly long, bloated, typical AAA adventure? Nah. Well, that's that premise of the video done for now. It's big bitch time! Yeah, that's right. Ethan has a hunch.
My hunch is she's in that old castle.
That his daughter is in that castle, and so he goes there only to find women and Beastman and a Euro cowboy who all want him dead. One particularly really huge woman too, which, I mean, I'm 6'6", so I ain't scared of no giant bitch. Dang. She bussin' though.
Damn.
Bussin'.
Ah, yes. It's the bust of the Duke of Bustington.
of House Bust. And so from that point on, it's mostly a very standard-ass Resi game with all the things I'm too tired to list off again, like the limited ammo and the amulets and jewels you slide into slots to trigger mechanisms and open doors and blah 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 blah. Though where RE8 was more of a modernized RE1 type thing, Village seems to be more in the vein of 4. Cinematic-y segments, it's one COD Zombies house turned into more of a recurring mechanic, bigger action and more dumb one-liner theatrics, set in Europe, as a shop with upgradable weapons and hella treasure and big loot for killing enemies, thus making it more combative, enemies with weapons that you can make them drop by shooting tactically, and others only in first person with several streamlinings brought on from their experiences doing 7 in the remakes, as in that puzzles tend to only use single-use items now, with no inventory clutter, and that the game overall moves at a blazing clip with set pieces, events, plot beats, and sequences rapidly moving up-ass interspliced with plotting, slow-moving exploration, and spooky moments, thus keeping the horror tensions and atmospheres alive and well. Shit's good. It's a well-made game, but you don't need me to tell you that. What I will say, though, is that I'm glad that RE7 wasn't a fluke. I mean, it takes a fair bit of courage to boldly state the future of our series is Resident Evil Survivor.
Vincent.
Who is this? Vincent? Who's that? Wait. Am I Vincent?
Vincent, you are a murderer. A murderer.
A murderer? What are you talking about? Answer me! Who did I kill?
Truly the truest first-person Resi game. However, what really stuck out to me about RE8 more than anything was how quite often I'd play for a few hours, look over at my recording window and see that I'd only been playing for 45 minutes. As you see, it actually did find a way to solve the Sega Sonic Team issue in ways that I will discussly in this video thusly. Sonic is about to fuck your bitch. Sonic is about to fuck your bitch. What a thrill. So, RE8 isn't structured very traditionally Resi-like. Like, small contained chunks of it are, but it's really more like RE4-like branches with a hub at their midst. You have the illusion of a police station or mansion puzzle box, but in reality you're primarily event-triggered about the place instead of properly puzzled. Sometimes you get a little riddle and you defo get keys that'll let you backtrack a bit to cool places, but it has way more forward motion in its progression. Its locations are more like fun houses than puzzle boxes, and I like that a lot. And due to the shop and goodies and huge ass inventory, you don't have to be hella stingy either. You can blast away big time in these more arena style areas with many enemies gunning through the shit you found while exploring meticulously prior, which makes it quite the reward in and of itself on top of the rewards you already get for doing it. This does make the game a lot less scary, but as someone who's always counted the likes of Dino Crisis 2, Dead Aim, and 4 to my all-time favorite Resis, I am rather down with this bigly. But yeah, Hubbard. Every time you get back from a big branch adventure, there's loads more to do, secrets to unlock, fun little sequences to trigger. Okay. Essentially putting the Metroidvania-esque puzzle box in the middle, gradually progressing over the course of the whole game influenced by your spoils acquired elsewhere. And each one of the branches that make up those wares to be elsed and wolved are all drastically different. The Dimitrescu house is the most like an old-school RE game. The Benviento house is one giant PT-infused puzzle gauntlet where you get stripped from your ammo and dumped into the spooky zone. The Werewolf Castle is a hardcore fuck-off big combat arena blast fest. And the water area is high-tension, quick-thinking, on-the-spot puzzle density. And this is where I begun to pick up on the time thing I mentioned earlier, as You see, the time spent in the PT house, for instance, legit only was about an hour. It's really not very big. But because it's so drastically different, gameplay-wise, tonally, and even functioning as its own whole little subplot in a way, I was like, whew, finally got my shit back. Things are back to normal once it was all done. Making it all feel like this whole ass journey, this thing. Putting a crevacerous sense of distance between you entering and exiting, despite really only being a handful of rooms, simply by how it sucks you into its vibe. Which is then amplified by returning to the hub afterwards. Returning home. Every time I returned to this place, it felt like I had truly been somewhere. Somewhere different. Someplace I didn't get to know quite as deeply as I did this little town. I mean, I had my shop here, a smorgasbord of memorable landmarks that helped me navigate it. A buttload of pick-upable locks and unlockables to pick away at with the shit I had gained on my adventures, and even some mild environmental storytelling. Like the house of the woodcutter/gardener that you can't get into but will remember because of the weird dumb door. Who then ends up being the gardener of the dollhouse house, letting you get a key from the shack on your way back out. So then when you get back to unload and take a load off, you can get a load off of the load off inside the house. Happy birthday, bitch. Use the date to unlock a safe, why don't you? It's small, barely even a story, but it does create a type of bond to the environment, if you will. A bond that grows out over the course of the whole place through how you engage over the course of the whole game. Having to do mini backtracks to gain further and further access, hopping through windows, climbing across rooftops, and smashing doors open. It's a very hands-on type of reward that puts you in your place. A place from which you can also see a lot and wonder about what it do before it do. Catch the factory from multiple angles long before you get there. See the windmills from the fish shanty town in the far off distance peeking out over the treetops. And of course, catch the massive castle looming over you at all times. And as you work your way through the village's initial romp into the underground and eventually through the entire castle itself, you will eventually exit through a window at the very top, where suddenly you look down at the town. I actually stood there for a good few seconds, reminiscing on the road I just went over, checking the map and realizing that said road really wasn't all that big, only lasting a couple of hours at most, but it still felt like I had fucking traveled.
Rose is here?
From the moment the old lady closed those gates, I had explored a whole town. Met characters, lost characters, crashed a car, dodged giant spike-wheeled death traps, met a whole cast of villains, got tortured, took care of a whole cast of villains, made it into the cum dungeons, lost some limbs, solved tons of puzzles, and waved through a sea of blood. This game just has so much going on. The castle part alone, the first fucking chapter, has enough of a cast, setting, and personality on its own alone that it easily could have supported an entire Resi game on its own. Luckily, while you do blow through it at a blazing pace, it's not necessarily paced as such, which I'd say is 100% down to how most of the gameplay actually is. Thing is that it heavily encourages slow exploration. Not just through the spooky atmosphere, but also by way of it having a penchant for stashing lootables everywhere, rewarding one for soaking in the details. And the enemies requiring a steady hand and you not rushing ahead or even past them given the goodies that they drop.
So we finally meet.
And that's not even getting to the chaser enemies that certain parts of the game have. It's like, yeah, sure, you can sprint, but you'd really be shooting yourself in the foot if you did, so walking it is. It essentially milks the most out of its smaller areas while keeping them small and plentiful, resulting in the slowest high-speed game this side of what the Sonic series wished it could fucking do. Resident Evil Village is a game of contrasts. Contrast between the puzzle box hub village and the set PC rest of the game. Contrast between big action and well-placed quiet time. And contrast between being downright horrifying and genuinely really fucking funny. And through those contrasts, it manages to instill a sense of scale that the Bloated 6 or the ever forward-moving and not always as tightly paced yet still excellent 4 never quite managed to achieve. The village may be a village, but like many small towns, it has a heart and personality that can rival even the largest metropoli. And thus, I can't say anything other than that this short little game is pretty fucking huge. And also quite immaculately stupid. I goddamn love it. The characters are all bumbling idiots. Even the villains. Ethan gets whole ass limbs and shit chopped off several times and heals it no problem with a herb juice. It's sort of self-aware, but not in the sense that it tries to act all bigger than it is by winking. It's just like, we know we made something dumb, so we just have fun with it, and we hope that you have too. Which ironically does make it bigger than it is. It's just such a lovely little journey, functioning as the perfect culmination of everything Capcom had done horror-wise leading up to it. Unkillable follow enemies with real-ass hiding spots a la Haunting Ground and Clock Tower 3, a whole host of Resi ideas from the ditched creepy dolls of old RE4 concepts, the first persons of Survive and early development RE1 ideas, to the big fish boat battle being turned into a whole-ass shantytown windmill stage with goddamn zip lines and high-octane plank running. Shit's great. Even the basic enemies have traces of the traditional mindless zombies, the melee 4 zombies, the 5 and 6 gun zombies, the OP hunter-like guys by way of the werewolves, the giant animal shit from Zero returning, El Gigante, regenerator-type dudes, battle tank-type dudes, and a whole lot more. It has mansions, castles, underground labs, and factories. Really, all it needed was a ship segment, and we'd have all the Resident Evils merged into one. It runs the gambit of Capcom horror games and is paced really fucking immaculately in the same way that the RE2 and 3 makes were, but better because of the big variety, big money. Making for a game that feels about twice as long and twice as grand as it truly is. And if that ain't bang for your buck, you don't know fuck. Plus, hey, it is also legit one of the beefier Resi games regardless. This shit ain't like 3 make. The in-game timer says it's about 12 hours, but my footage is more like 16, meaning that the in-game timer probably doesn't count cutscenes as playtime and maybe also resets upon deaths. But regardless, it's closer in length to 4 than it is to 2, and that's pretty cool.
Oh my god! You guys! It's a horse game! Horse game!